Hi everybody. In this video we will calculate Franklin Company's cost of goods sold and ending inventory for the month of February using the specific identification cost flow assumption. Specific identification cannot be used by very many companies. It can only be used by a company that can have some method of identifying that single one piece of inventory from any other piece of inventory that they own. A grocery store cannot identify one loaf of bread from another. They cannot identify a dozen eggs from another carton of a dozen eggs. A hardware store cannot identify one rake from a different rake. When rakes are purchased at different dates, they all get put up on the shelf or leaned up against the wall. They all look the same. There's no specific identifying number on that rake. There is no way that you can say that rake was one that I purchased on March 1st and that rake was one I purchased on January 2nd. So specific identification is generally used by companies that have a pretty low volume of inventory that usually has a pretty high cost and has a specific identifier. The most common one is a car dealer. Every car in the United States has a VIN, a vehicle identification number, and that number is unique to every vehicle. It's not repeated on different vehicles. It is a unique identifying number, and it is stamped into the frame and the engine of the car. So there are a few other companies that can use specific identification. Maybe someone that sells bicycles, that when they buy the bicycles, the manufacturer prints a specific identification number for each different bicycle. Or maybe a jeweler selling high dollar amount jewelry might have a way to specifically identify that diamond ring from this diamond ring. But the normal everyday businesses cannot use specific identification. And the way it normally works is, let's say that you go into a car dealership and you test drive a Honda Civic. And you decide you like that Honda Civic, you want to buy it. Then the dealer can pull the paperwork on that specific Honda Civic by looking up the vehicle identification number on the dealer's paperwork, and they can trace the actual cost paid for that specific Honda to the paperwork where they bought that Honda. Now, obviously, we don't have the ability to do that in this class, so for all specific identification problems, you will have to be given the information to identify which items were sold and which items were not sold. So in the Franklin case, the number 4 gives the information we need to apply specific identification cost flow. It says, assume the February 7th sale consisted of 1 unit from the beginning inventory and 3 units from the inventory purchased on February 3rd. That's this sale right here where we sold 4 units. We sold 3 units on February 28th, and the problem tells us that we need to assume that the February 28th sale consisted of 3 units from the inventory purchased on the 20th. With that information, we can calculate cost of goods sold and ending inventory for the month of February using the specific identification cost flow assumption. As always, these first 2 lines will be the same for every single cost flow assumption, including specific identification. So I filled in the beginning balance, 3 at 5 equals $15. And then, because nothing else happened, there were no sales, no other things that happened in here, I went ahead and brought that beginning inventory down to the next box And now I can completely ignore anything written in the boxes above the box I'm currently working in. And this is the oldest inventory I own. Then on February 3rd, we purchased 5 units at $7 each. 5 times 7 is $35, giving us $50 of inventory owned at that point and available for sale at that point. Now, on the 7th of February, we sold 4 units, and our instructions are to apply the cost for 1 unit from the beginning inventory and 3 units from the inventory purchased on February 3rd. It's like baking a cake, just follow the instructions. Let me show you how that works. February 7th, sold 4 units. It said take the cost of 1 unit from the beginning inventory and 3 units from the inventory purchased on February 3rd. And that means then that we have $26 of cost of goods sold under specific identification. And we had 3 units in the $5 layer. We took the cost of 1 of them out. That leaves 2 units in the $5 layer unsold for $10. We had 5 units available in the $7 layer. We took the cost of 3 of those units out, leaving 2 unsold at $7 is $14. The cost of the inventory after the February 7th sale then is $24. And cost of goods sold plus ending inventory is $50. That does equal goods available for sale immediately before the sale. I want you to go ahead and finish up this worksheet all the way through. And when you complete your work, start the video again and check your work. So did you come up with cost of goods sold for the month of February using specific identification of $56? Did you come up with specific identification ending inventory of $70? And does the proof work? 56 of cost of goods sold plus 70 of unsold inventory or inventory at the end of the month equals $126. Which was the goods available for sale throughout the entire month. If you did, you can treat yourself to not watching the rest of this video. However, if you did not, you need to check your work and make changes for any errors you made. This is where we left off. The next thing we do is bring the inventory that was unsold down in chronological order, oldest to newer, and then apply the 2 units that cost us $8 on February 8th to get $40 of inventory under specific identification after the February 8th purchase. Then you need to bring these 3 layers of inventory down in the same oldest to newest order and record the 6 units purchased at $10 each. You had a total of $100 worth of inventory then after the purchase of February 20th. We sold 3 units on February 28th, and the instructions said to assume that the 3 units of inventory that were sold on February 28th came from the cost of the February 20th inventory. The February 20th inventory cost us $10 each, so 3 at $10 equals cost of goods sold of $30. And we didn't touch these older layers. They're all exactly the same. But this $10 layer, we took 3 of the costs out of this $10 layer, leaving us 3 at $10. for $30 comes up to $70. So ending inventory under specific identification is $70. Cost of goods sold is $26 for the first sale, and $30 for the second sale is $56, and 56 and 70 is $126. So that's all of the videos for the 4 cost flow assumptions. See you next time for more practice with Chapter 5.